Hello and welcome again to another Otter Creek and Rio Grande operating session. Now this is going to be a little different than the previous video I did. That one was more for entertainment purposes, I guess you could say. What I'm going to do this evening is actually a full-fledged kind of operating test play session, if you will. Now since I've started using Train Waybell's car card system, it's really kind of changed how I operate the layout. And so I'm kind of messing around with a couple of different ideas of how I might want to do things with other people operating the layout. So I'm going to do essentially 3 jobs in this video. Of course, I can't do them all at the same time, so I'm just going to have to leapfrog, if you will, from one to the other. But in theory, at least 2 of them would take place simultaneously, and that would be the job at Malta, and then at the same time that the cars are going in and out of Malta, you would also have Maroon Creek doing a very similar thing where you're bringing cars back from the pretend Jerome Park area where the interchange is, and then working all of the sidings and spurs at Maroon Creek. Now the idea is that about the same time that the operator is finishing up with what's going on at Malta, the freight hauler moving, at least in this operating session, moving from the east to the west will come through both Malta and Maroon Creek and then stop at Frying Pan for, necessary maintenance on the train, and then offload whatever needs to be offloaded there in Frying Pan. So that's kind of the concept. It's not drastically different from what I've done before, but having a dedicated operator in Maroon Creek and maybe having a dedicated operator at Malta is something that I'm thinking about. I'm not sure exactly how it'll work, but that's what this session is going to be about, is kind of figuring that stuff out. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, entering the scene from Cloud City is the 360, which is not a train that too many people have seen. It's my worst runner. I'm not sure what it is, if it's a Chemtron or some other lesser known brass model. It is a brass model, and it has a Soundtrax decoder in it. I believe it's a Tsunami 2 1100, and it runs reasonably okay. I've done a lot of work on the back EMF on it, but you can only do so much with a motor that's not perfect, and this motor has definitely got some lumps and bumps in it. Don't know if you can hear it, but she's a growler. So what I'm doing here is picking up these 2 tank cars. They have been off spot on the siding here at Malta because there was not room for them at the Farmers Co-op. So I'm going to make sure that those go into the Farmers Co-op, and then I'm taking out, I can't remember exactly, I think it's 4 or 5 cars. So everything here at Lale & Sons needs to come out except this car here that I'm grabbing hold of at the moment. That one needs to go in for a little more repairs or something. I don't even know what that thing is, but I'm pretending it's boiler parts for the moment. I just need to get it out of the way so I can get the other 3 cars that are back there. I've had a few people ask, how do I really uncouple cars? And that's how I do it right there with a bamboo skewer. It works really well for me. I try and make sure everything I do on the layout is within arm's reach. I haven't had any luck at all with magnetic coupling devices. As a matter of fact, I've kind of taken to cutting off the trip pins on a lot of my cars because I find that they cause almost as many problems as they help as far as magnetics go. I mean, if you're not using any magnets, why do you even need them other than to hold the couplers together? So this is everything that's coming out. And we just need to put, I think it's the 317 back in where the guys working there at Lale & Son can get to it. Now, that particular box car is the 329. That is a rail line car that I put together and painted myself. I've got a video on that if you're interested. I thought it turned out pretty good. Now the structure there to the left that I'm calling Lale & Son, that's a fine scale miniatures model. I can't think what kit number it is, but I think it's the station and water tower or something along those lines. And then the lean-to back there in the back, that's my very first scratch build. And then the station house or the freight house there next to it, I think that was my second scratch build. All right, so we've got all of these cars now that are ready to go out, except the two tank cars. I just need to run around, so I'm working them from the opposite end so I can shove them into the farmer's co-op. Now, another one of the reasons you haven't seen the 360 very much, aside from the fact that I don't really like the way it runs, the front coupler is, I guess you call it one of those dummy couplers, and the cow catcher interferes with anything that's got one of those magnetic uncoupling pins on it. So the 329 does not have one of those, and so it works okay on this particular locomotive. Eventually I'm going to have to figure out a way to put a good Katy coupler on the front, but it looks like it's going to take some alteration of the cow catcher, if you will. Now this box car here is scheduled for departure. We're gonna pick it up and drop off the two oil tankers. I'm also going to be picking up a stock car, so I'm going to set it out here on this higher track that I know I'm going to be going to next. A little more skewer action. Now, some of you might be wondering, why in the world does the United Farmers Co-op need 3 tanker cars? And that's something that I do need to adjust with the way bills. I really, at most, only need 1 tanker car to go in there at any one given point in time. I need to adjust and maybe come up with another industry in the Cloud City area where I can take 3 or 4 of those tanker cars. Now we're going to shove this string up here to Sperry Farms and grab the 1 stock car that we need. I like doing things nice and slow. It just seems more realistic to me if you keep things at a scale speed or slower. So the idea here is that all of these cars can be set out to be picked up by a westbound freight hauler. And so this little piece of track right here is a siding that I've added into my tracks arrangement for Malta. I did it just before I started filming, and I had some issues with being able to set any cars out on it. I don't know if maybe I needed to log out and log back in or something, but once I picked up all the cars, which is what I'm doing right here, you can see the 2 tank cars need moved. So they have been moved into the location, and then everything else I've picked up. And I think, another part of the issue here is if you look up there where it says Malta, there's no line underneath Malta. So that means there are no yard tracks in this town. And I want at least 2 yard tracks. So that might be one of the reasons why I couldn't set them out on the prescribed siding that I created. All I could do was drop them. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm dropping them, but for whatever reason, I didn't have a specific location to drop them. All right, that takes care of Malta, the 360. I didn't have anything to set out. I kind of did that intentionally to a certain degree. I am following the operations plan that Train Waybills has given me, but I definitely could have done something a little bit different and had something to set out besides the 2 tank cars. So I'm going back to Cloud City empty. And here we get to see the 360 exiting stage left in all her steam and glory. All right, so while all that was going on at Malta, the second operator would be handling what's going on here in Maroon Creek. And so the idea here is that this train is coming from the town of Jerome Park, and this is all of the cars that went to the interchange tracks and has satisfied their move for the car card, for the waybill. Now, as it turned out, every one of these cars that I'm handling right here were all needed to go west. They were either going to the west staging yard or they were going to Grand Junction. So I'm setting them out on this siding track, which is a trailing point for the westbound hauler. And you can see there's 3 cars already there, also waiting to go westbound. So things were kind of stacking up here at Maroon Creek. Now the flat car with the load of lumber, it had not actually satisfied its timeout phase, its movement phase. So I didn't really know where it was going when I started doing this, because a train technically hadn't come through the yard yet for the system to update. So I just kept it on the back end of the 347 here, not knowing whether it was going to go eastbound or westbound. All right, now I'm moving up to the Muckawonga mill, where I've got those 3 gondolas, and they are also westbound, and so I need to pick them up on the tail end of the train to make sure I can also set them out in the same spot there on the siding, headed westbound. If they were going eastbound, I would have picked them up on the nose of the 347. And since I'm picking up the whole string of cars, I'm just going to shove them completely out the east end of the siding there and come this way to save a little extra back and forth movement getting up there. Now, it was about this time when I was doing all this, when I kind of started thinking, well, this video is probably getting a little long. And it's hard to know exactly how long your video is going to be and what's too long. So I did start maybe moving a little faster than what I normally do. Aside from picking up the Muckawonga, I also need to pick up McCarville oil and Sperry cattle. And it just so happens that both of those cars are eastbound. So I need to pick them up and make sure I set them out on the opposite end of that siding, so that the eastbound freight hauler has a trailing point picking them up. Some of you might be wondering about the Maroon Creek Bridge, which is there in the background. Today, I think I got my final order of materials that I think I'm going to be able to begin buttoning that up here pretty soon. Hopefully, the very next video that I put out will be on that bridge build. All right, now we're going to back in and grab this stock car out of Sperry Cattle. And we will set it out on the east end of Maroon Creek siding. The 347 is a Blackstone, I believe that's a C19. and it runs pretty good. In fact, I would say all of the Blackstones run quite well for the most part. My only complaint is the lack of a keep alive. But you know, if your track is nice and clean, it doesn't cause too many problems. All right, now once again, I don't know where the 6095, that flat car of lumber, I still don't know where it's going to go at the moment, but I know that I've got a westbound hauler coming, so the 347 is just going to hide up here on that third track up and wait for the hauler. Now I'm just going into the program and making sure that I've picked everything up, and I'm just, you know, double checking and making sure that everything that's on the iPad screen there is actually what I handled. I would say pretty much every time that I operate, you know, I find something that I need to tweak just a little bit. So now you can see I've got 8 cars in the train. That upper right hand corner there where the number 8 is, that's what's currently in my consist. So I'm going to set out every one of those cars. I'm going to park them on the Maroon Creek siding. Now, right now I don't differentiate between east and west. I may go in and do that. I haven't decided yet. As long as the operator knows, it's not that big of a deal, but I'm just setting them all out. And again, if you look up there where it says Maroon Creek, there's no lines. So there's no yard tracks. And what that means is you can't pick up or set out an entire consist of cars. So I think that's something I need to tweak, which is what I did just there. I picked up an entire consist of cars, which is this particular train here, which is might seem a little short, but we'll fix that here pretty soon. This is the westbound hauler, which is the 482. It's a Fujiyama K36. It's probably my best running locomotive. Definitely has some quirks as far as you know, the pilot truck and the trailing truck. If you've got good track work, it's not going to bother you too much. For the most part, I don't have too many problems with it. All right, we're going to stop here and pick up everything that's headed west from the Malta siding. It's not real easy to see, but that is a dual gauge turnout. It only turns out the narrow gauge though, so you can't turn out on standard gauge. And if you're new to narrow gauge, what I mean by dual gauge is that I can run both standard gauge equipment, which I believe is the 4 foot 8 inches between the wheel sets, and the narrow gauge trains, which is the 3 foot between the railheads. Shouldn't be too much longer, and I might actually be able to add a standard gauge train running through there as part of operations. A cameo appearance, if you will. All right, we're headed down Hellgate Pass. Not having to work too hard. It's a 2% grade, give or take. Pretty much everything on the layout is a 2% grade. There might be a couple places where it's a little more and a few places where it's a little less, but I guess the ruling grade is 2%, if I'm using the term accurately. Now, if I actually had two people operating here, the 482 would just go ahead and drop the entire train, and then the operator working the 347 would snatch up the entire train here and pick up I'm dropping off is what I'm doing. I'm dropping off two cars here and going back and also picking up the flat car, which I have determined that the flat car is going west. So I'm going to add it in front of the caboose. I didn't film that because I knew the video was getting long. You can see the flat car there now. So I've dropped two off and added one to what was already there. And then the 482 is taking everything else that was on that siding that's headed west. All right, we're ready to head to Frying Pan. Got a full train. I think this is officially the longest train I've run on the layout to date. I can't remember if it was 19 cars plus the caboose making 20, or if the caboose made 20. I counted, but I don't remember now off the top of my head. So I guess for fun, you can count the cars. I lost track already. I'm calling this area here a workbench pass, and this is the location where I'm going to drop in a right-hand turnout going to the mine. Hopefully it won't be too much longer before I do that. I just need to build some turnouts. This is kind of a neat shot here. You can see that the caboose is going downhill while the rest of the train, is kind of coming uphill. Or at least half is going downhill, the other half is coming up. That definitely helps with being able to pull the grade through there, because I think that is one area where I might be a little steeper than 2%, is the last 2.5, 3 feet coming into frying pan here. Now the two turnouts there that are coming in, that we're going across right now, those were I believe the first two custom curved radius turnouts that I built. I've definitely refined the process, and those are scheduled for demolition and new turnouts put in, because I know I can get that a lot better than it is. I would say there's about a 10% chance that something might derail on those two turnouts coming in, and that's not good. I want them to be virtually zero chance of derailing. All right, so we've parked the train on arrival and departure track 1, and the 482 here is crawling across the 3-way, and going to go in for a little bit of maintenance while the 41 will handle the cars that have just come in. They need to be separated between those that are going to Grand Junction and those that are going to the West Staging Yard. Now, I'm not going to do that in this video. This has been plenty long just as it is right now. I probably will go ahead and film the rest of this operating session for your viewing pleasure at a later date. Not sure when that'll occur, but thanks for watching the Otter Creek and Rio Grande. If you like this kind of video, drop me a comment, because I never really know, how many people do enjoy this kind of thing versus, structure builds versus the layout updates or the layout building process. I do basically 3 different kinds of videos, and I never really know who likes what the most. I don't know that it really matters, but I do try and do a little bit of everything to keep things flowing. All right, thanks for watching, and we will see you later on the Otter Creek and Rio Grande.